Hi guys, it's Talisha. I am super excited to share this video with you guys because you haven't really seen videos of Kai's actual progress in his work-wise. Like, you've seen him at a couple outings and stuff, but it's not me asking anything out of him at those outings because I just didn't want him to feel too pressured to be working in a certain way. I just wanted him to be moving and things like that. But now he's gotten to a stage where I want to ask more of him when I take him out. This is his first time in an indoor. As you can see here, he didn't want to stay straight. I have a dressage whip and he was just not listening to my leg, so I put a little bit of pressure on with the whip and that's how he reacted. So I took him around again. He did the same thing, not listening to my leg. I used the whip. As you can see, only a little tap, but he's never had a dressage whip on him before, so it was just like a bit of a baby reaction. For the third time, I took him around again. Didn't use the whip at all, as you'll see, just used my leg and he listened. So, of course, he was in his right mind to be a bit cautious about the wall. He didn't want to stay straight on it, but obviously that's the main thing I want from a baby is straightness. And to be listening to my leg. So that time he didn't swing his hindquarters out. So I took the pressure off and gave him a reward. Now, he took a while to stop staring at himself in the mirror because he was just so obsessed with himself. But I walked him around like this for about 10 minutes just on a long rein, trying to get him to just get used to it. He was a bit funny about the lighting and like the shadows on the ground, but he took it all really well. He's not used to working in an arena, so it did take a lot for us to actually get him to work into his corners as he kept wanting to cut corners. But yeah, so there is another horse in the arena as well, just as a little bit of a helper to get him used to working around other horses. It is my friend Emily on her horse Harry. Now, I start to work him now. He has been doing a little bit of work with me in a frame. Obviously, he's only young, so his framework is very inconsistent. You will see him slip behind the vertical a couple times, but that's very common for a young horse. And as soon as he does that, you can see me kind of release my reins and his head goes forward. Whether his head goes back up, I'm not worried. I just don't want him slipping behind that mark. So when you see him slip behind it, it's only for a very short moment. I've only probably been doing this type of like framework for about 3 rides now. Very lightly. I don't work him in a frame for long because he's young and not very strong in a frame, so it's normally about 10 minutes of framework. And then I do everything else on a long rein. You can probably tell in some of these videos. Oh, first of all, I'm doing a lot of circles. I'm getting him to bend around my leg because the main thing, a lot of people ask me how I get my horses on the bit, and it's not just, it's not, the head isn't what you worry about, especially with young horses. A lot of people just think, oh, you just need the head down and that means they're, working their hind end. They're not. If you're just got a horse's head down, sometimes they won't be working through their back. The only way you get them to work through their back is from impulsion and forwardness. Your horse has to be forward and bending around your leg before you can actually get them to correctly work through the back. In other words, work on the bit. The head is just a thing that comes with that. So what I'm focusing on is getting him forward and bending around my leg. I'm not putting much pressure on my hands or anything like that. The main way I get him on the bit, is from bending and keeping him forward. Sometimes I'll do little half halts just to be like, hey, come down a bit, and as soon as he gives me anything, I release. No, added pressure that doesn't need to be there. The big thing you want to do with your horses is working from seat and leg. You don't want the main way to be like your main aid to be your hands. It's the last thing. It's kind of like a last resource, honestly. But anyway, back to what I was about to say before I interrupted myself. Kai actually got bitten on the nose by Jep. So if you probably can see in some clips, like just below his nose band, he looks kind of Roman-nosed. As you can see, there's a bit of a lump. That's because the day before, Jep decided she'd had enough of him and gave him a nice bite on the nose. So luckily it was below the nose band, which means it didn't affect him at all and it wasn't that sore, but he is a bit swollen. You will also notice I don't have a flash on him anymore. Yes, I had comments being like, "Oh, you put a flash on him to stop him biting you, or like when you were riding and stuff, blah blah blah." Like that's not fixing it. That's just hiding the issue. All right. Well, just so you guys know, I had a flash on him for like 3 rides, if that. Took it off, and he didn't try bite me once. So, do you really think it was just covering the issue? Nope. Because I have not ridden him in a flash since. Don't plan on using one again, because he realised, that that's not what he's supposed to do. With the flash, he physically couldn't bite me because he couldn't open his mouth wide enough to, like, bite my leg. And now he doesn't try. So, just so you guys know, yeah, it worked. Sass pants. It just annoys me when people try and give me tips like that about my horse, and then, like, I know my horse, and it clearly worked. Ha ha ha. Me just rubbing it in their faces. Anyway, so as you can see with Kai, I do a lot of circles. Circles, circles, circles. Because all I want him to be doing is bending around my leg. I want that slight inside bend, which is slowly coming. And as he does bend to the inside and kind of leg yields out from my inside leg, he will collect himself a little bit, if you want to call it that. Here I asked for his left canter lead, which is his bad canter, and he didn't get it, but he got it on his second go, which is good. So this is probably this ride in particular is the most I've done on the framework. He was feeling so much stronger. His canter's really coming along. It's not as strong as his trot, but as you can see, I just kind of let him have his head at first and just let him go out, because what I want from his canter is I just want it balanced and forward. He can finally do 20-meter canter circles and be balanced and not having trouble. It's still not as balanced as I'd like it to be, but for his age and at the stage he's at in his training, I'm incredibly happy with it. And then I stop and give him a reward for being good, because he was stretching out and covering a lot of ground. Oh, maybe I give him a break after. I didn't realise I cut the clip there. I think actually I do start to ask a bit more of him. I think I start to shorten my reins here and just put a little bit of pressure about bending a little bit more and just working through my hands a bit. But as you can see, I'm not asking much of him. I'm just kind of trying to shorten his stride a bit, which he was doing really nicely, just to make sure he's adjustable in all his gaits, because that's a big thing I want from young horses, is adjustability, because it's one of the biggest things that'll come on later in his training. You want adjustable gaits for no matter what discipline you're doing with a horse. So then I gave him a pat, let him walk out before doing his other side. Now this is his good side. He pretty much 98% of the time will get his right side, because it's just his favourite and strongest side. And you can really see how much stronger he is in the right canter once he actually canters. It's a big difference. But so he's coming along with the framework. I'm not too worried about it at the moment. It's just kind of a bonus because he is working off my leg. That's why he's kind of putting himself in that frame, and me slight half halting with my reins is also helping that. But it's not something I'm worried about. I just want him to get a bit more strength and work through his back, and that will help him work through his back. So as you can see already, he's got a slower canter. Well, because he can slow down more on the right rein, he's much stronger. He can actually control his canter a bit more. It's much easier for him to just run out and not have any control. The slower he goes, it's a bit harder for him because he just doesn't have a heap of strength. So this side's much nicer. You can tell it's more balanced. He's not drifting through his shoulder quite as much. Again, I'm letting him have his head, just letting him stretch out, get the feel for the canter, and I gave him a bit more rein because he was being really good there. And then I shorten him up, and he shortens up so much nicer on the right side. And then I kind of adjust the circle a little bit, making it a little bit shorter, just doing little things. And then I ask a bit more out of him, push him forward while bending him around my inside leg. And you can see he starts to fall into a nice frame. So I stopped, gave him a reward because he was being good, gave him a pat, and There were poles in the arena, so I couldn't help but walk him over them a couple times. I've walked him over poles when he was young too, but Kyle unfortunately missed filming the first one. It was quite funny. He just leapt over the poles at first. This is actually filmed on my phone because my camera ran out of space. But this was the last thing we did because, as you could see in that trot work, he was so much more consistent. And this canter lead, I mean, this is his good side again. I got photos of his other side, so we don't have his left side filmed twice. But you can just see how much stronger he is just from how he was cantering before, how much more, like, it's just so much nicer. And so much more balanced. And it's slower, he's able to slow his strides down and then lengthen out, which unfortunately I didn't get videos of him lengthening out because I wanted photos instead because they looked pretty cool. But he was so good for his first time in an indoor. He was a bit nervous to go in and get out of the actual arena, a bit unsure, but he's the type of horse that he's so confident. Oh, this is the same clip. Oops. Well, I'll leave it in while I talk. He's the type of horse that he's quite confident and bold, so even if he is unsure, he thinks a lot of himself, so if he's unsure, he'll have a think about it, but he's not silly. He's pretty bold for his age. I think he'd make a really good jumper because he's just got so much confidence. But I can't wait to do more with him, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Alright, bye!